Hello, folks. Welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. My name is Roy Bensby, and I'm your host. And I want to explain a little bit about the podcast before we start the show this week. This podcast is an opportunity for me to speak with some of the most interesting people I know that I can find on the internet. So, either with amazing talents or achievements or just unbelievable life stories or invaluable insights into areas that they have dedicated their lives to studying. I sit down with these amazing individuals from all across the world. Really, I've talked to people from Slovenia to the Czech Republic to Australia to countries in Africa and South America, really just all over the world. And I try to ask them the questions that will hopefully help you extract something valuable or learn something new or just get inspired by. And I do hope that you do get inspired by these talks with some sort of a call to action, maybe change something that you wanted to change for a while, or even just enjoy, detaching from the world for an hour and listening to some great conversations. So whatever it is that you get from this, I do hope that you extract something from it and enjoy the conversations. All these episodes are available on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google, and the rest of them. You can also find the episodes on my website, which is roybensv.com. You can find a lot of other information about me there as well, from photos to a little bit more insights into who I am, if you're interested. And, you can always go to social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me there. I'm pretty active on both those platforms, although the only ones I have. And I try to post regularly so you can stay up to date. And also be sure to put your email on the website. I shoot emails out with updates, news, any new current information that I have will be sent via those emails and social media platforms. So yeah, make sure you're in the loop. All right, guys, today on the podcast, we have Natan Levy, fresh off a triangle choke from Dana White's Contender series. Natan is a super well-rounded, great fighter with a lot of potential and a whole lot of promise. He is one of a handful of Israeli fighters fighting at the very top of MMA right now. It's about a handful. It's not a lot, unfortunately. And we discuss the reasons why it is like that, why in Israel there's just not a lot of infrastructure, not a lot of support, not a lot of fighting culture like you have potentially in Russia or Dagestan or Ireland or Mexico. They have boxing. Brazil, they have capoeira and jiu-jitsu. And that just doesn't really exist in Israel much. There is obviously Krav Maga that hails from the region, but that's not a competitive sport. That's more of a self-defense technique, so completely different. And we cover all these things. We talk about how long it took him to fulfill his dream of becoming a UFC fighter. When a lot of people see overnight success, they don't see the years and years of self-doubt, of determination, of sacrifice and hard work put in. And for him, it's been many, many years of that. And finally, he's at the pinnacle and he's ready to basically take over. And looking from his fights, he's currently undefeated, great record, very impressive, super well-rounded. And yeah, I wish him great things. And he was super fun on this podcast as well. Really, we got into so many different areas, from his weight division, the 155, to what the situation is like back home, how hard it is to, compete at this level, chasing a dream, not giving up on that dream, and just a whole platitude of different topics. So if you're an MMA fan, even if you're not an MMA fan, but you just want to hear passionate dude who never gave up on his dream and kept pursuing it and finally achieved it, you should definitely tune into this one. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, here is this week's guest, Natan Levy. Enjoy the podcast, everyone.
The Genuinely Interested Podcast.
Hey, Natan.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I watched you. You kind of blew up overnight on the Dana White Contender series. You had an amazing performance, and me, I've wanted to have a representation of Israel in the UFC for the longest time. And finally, we have one. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm overnight success, 29 years in the making.
Yeah, right? That's always the case. Whenever they say like overnight success, they don't look at all the stuff you did before, all the years of hard work, the preparation, whatever you've done to succeed in your field. It's always like whenever you succeed, it's like overnight success.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your background. Where were you born?
I was born in Paris.
Okay.
I moved to Israel at a very young age. My parents got divorced in France, so I moved to Israel with my mother and two older brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And always had a passion for martial arts, for fighting movies, but never really stuck to anything. And at 15, I started training very seriously in Kung Fu and karate. Got my black belt in Japan when I was 18.
In Japan?
Yeah, in karate in Okinawa.
Wow, okay.
And started teaching. I had a few successful gyms back home. And when I turned 22, after, I've been watching MMA for a few years, and I really loved watching it, but I thought it's not something I'm going to do in life. And then at some point, I just decided it's now or never. Left everything, flew to Vegas without knowing anybody, with the dream of becoming a UFC fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been 7 years. I guess we're going to talk what happened in those 7 years, because it's been,
Definitely.
a crazy 7 years. But I just signed with the UFC, so I'm excited.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Wait, let me. So I wanted to ask something. I didn't want to disrupt your story. What was your favorite movie, kind of kung fu or martial arts movie growing up?
Probably Rocky.
Rocky, yeah, Rocky.
Yeah.
What? No, Enter the Dragon or some of the
Yeah,
other
also.
yeah.
Yeah. That too.
Yeah, Rocky's a classic, man. Fucking Rocky is one of those movies that you almost you have to go do some shadow boxing after you watch it. Like it just fills your body with adrenaline.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a few years. And then just a couple camps ago, a couple of fights ago, I was feeling the morale was low. Training was so hard. I was overtrained. I was just feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And I always say you don't need the motivation if you have discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have went running either way, because that's what I needed to go do.
Yeah.
But I watched Rocky, and then I felt like going running, sprinting the whole way.
Yeah.
So it is good sometimes to have a little boost of motivation. And Rocky definitely gives that to you.
You put the Eye of the Tiger on and you just go like a rocket. So you got here to Las Vegas and you didn't have a gym in mind? You didn't do research in advance, where to go, what are the top gyms? You just kind of came here and figured it out?
I did know of a couple gyms, but actually there was Noad Lahat. He's the second UFC fighter ever from Israel. And back when I traveled to the US, he wasn't even in the UFC yet. So it wasn't like there was another Israeli who already done it. It was pretty just crazy to think you can do it. And I was going to go to San Jose and join his gym. And then at the end, just something told me, no, go to Vegas. So I did that. And I didn't know where I was going to go. And I got lucky. I met my striking coach, Jimmy Giff. We immediately connected. And all I knew was karate. I was not ready to fight in MMA. I thought I was going to fly to Vegas and start fighting, become a champion,
Yeah.
And I spent a few months with him training. He took me to Syndicate, the gym that I'm at now. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know it existed before I flew to Vegas. And so I met Giff, and he took me under his wing. He's been training me ever since. I got super lucky. and everything really worked out. I got lucky.
Yeah, because most people, I mean, I guess a lot of fighters do stay in their camps and with their coaches, but you'll see fighters switch camps, switch clubs, switch gyms and coaches all the time. So it's I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it's becoming rarer to see someone stay with coaches for like an extended period of years.
Yeah, some people change coaches like they change socks. I don't like that. Of course, you got to do what's best for your career. I can understand it. At the same time, I think sometimes people have a great thing going. Like me, I'm undefeated in 10 fights, 4 amateur, 6 pro. And people like write me in the questions and answers on Instagram, are you going to change gyms now that you're in the UFC? Hell no. Why would I?
Yeah,
we've had such a great run. And sometimes I feel people have a great run and then they lose once. It's got to be the coach's fault. I got to change gyms.
Yeah.
How about it's your fault?
Yeah.
How about shit happens? What about all those time you won thanks to that team?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's a great attitude to have, man. A lot of people, and not in MMA or sports specifically, but generally in life, and I see this in a lot of industry, they lack personal responsibility. If there's a problem or if something's not going well in life, I just need to blame someone else. It's not me. It's not my decision. It's not my lack of preparation. It's not my will that's not strong enough. It's always someone else. And I love that you just take that personal responsibility. I think that's a great characteristic, really.
Yeah, I think, like you said, people like to blame other people. And sometimes it's really not your fault, but it's always going to be a little bit and I think you learned that from fighting. I think fighting is very humbling. And it gives you a lot of self responsibility because when you're training and you get hit, you always, even if you're drilling, you always want to go like, bro, why'd you hit me like that? Or when you're like, I should have blocked it. It is my fault. Maybe you shouldn't have thrown this hard when we were drilling, so that if I fail to block, you don't break my nose. Yeah, perhaps, but at the same time, I should have blocked.
Yeah. What how different, because you've trained in a bunch of countries now. You've trained in Israel, obviously. You've trained in Japan, and now you've been training in the US in the last 7 years. What are the main things that you would say that are different between the 3 nations as far as gyms or just the culture of fighting, that kind of stuff?
Ooh, big differences. Israel, it's Israel is small. Everything is smaller. The gyms are way smaller. Mat space is very small and crowded.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a team like in Vegas, 30, 40, 50 pros on the mat. You just can't, 10, 12 people, and it gets crowded.
Yeah.
Also, there's not a lot of people, which means there's less athletes and less people to work with in every weight class. So it's very hard to find good training partners. Even if you do find, a good coach, which we have in Israel, it's very hard to find consistent training partners. One's going to be maybe a good boxer, but when you spar, you can take him down easily. And one's going to be a good wrestler, but you can outstrike him easily. So it's kind of 10, 15 years ago in the US, when you had to go and spar kickboxers, and then you got to go and spar boxers, wrestle wrestlers. That's the situation it's now in Israel, which is not bad. It means it's evolving.
Yeah.
Because, more old school is there's this one gym, you do this one thing, and that's it. And Israel is evolving, the scene's evolving. Hopefully we can get some amateur fights going there so people can really start their career right and not immediately go pro without any experience. Like, when somebody's supposedly a professional, he's supposed to have like a background to become a pro in something. But in Israel, people are just from nothing to pro, and it's crazy to me.
It's the Israeli way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try and change that to get Israelis like a better shot at really becoming something in the sport, and that's the way that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
US, everything is huge facilities, a bunch of training partners, which is great. US also has its, the bad things, the cons. Like if you come to train in Vegas, a lot of people come to train in Vegas and then they lose themselves to the city, to gambling, or they get. I always say that like people come into Vegas and they're like, "Oh, I'm here to fight." They're already fighters. I'm here to train in Vegas and become this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but I'm gonna take this work at the nightclub to support my fighting career, and then they make bank at the nightclub, and you never see them again in the gym.
Really?
Yeah. So in Japan, it's another planet. So Japan is like that way old school. Like at least Okinawa, where I trained at first, it's so old school. Wooden floor. If you get dropped on your head, that's cool. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
They're not gonna put mats for you. And just hard training, body conditioning. Everything's very old school. A lot of things, I don't think are the best for a fighter, but at the same time, very good to build character, to become mentally, physically stronger. And I don't do that same style anymore. I used to train like in Okinawa. It's very island traditional, Uechi-ryu style. It's called. I got the third degree black belt in it.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays I train in Tokyo in Kyokushin karate. It's more like modern. It's full contact, very hard knocks karate.
Yeah.
And there it's like way more modern. Still, it's karate. It's not MMA, but sometimes we train without the gi. A lot of weight training, rubber bands, resistance training, a lot of running, swimming, bicycle, rowing machine, and between kicks, between sets on the heavy bag. So it's way more involved over there.
So you still go and train there sometimes in Japan?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Last time I was there was a year ago exactly.
Because the karate aspect and I think that's kind of your first love, because that's what probably you've been doing the longest, is so more advanced there.
That's right. At first, so I kind of not forgot about karate, but of course, after years of doing it, and then you do something new, you're kind of gonna push it aside, and I did. And then one time, my friend finished. My friend asked me to join him to Tokyo for training.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Japan, so I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come." And started training there in that new style, and just kind of fell in love with karate again. For a moment, I would think of karate only as like one more discipline. Like, oh, this one is for punches, this one is for takedowns. Karate is for kicks and trips. And when I went there, it sparked like the fire in me again for karate. And I remembered that karate is like, it's more than just moves chained together. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. And I don't want to ever like drop it from my life. MMA is amazing. That's my job. That's my passion. But karate is also my passion, and it's also something I bring with me every day. Whether I do wrestling, I'm using karate because I'm using the mindset that I learned for years of training.
Yeah, the spirit, the lifestyle. Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to it. But you don't have when I see you in the cage, there's nothing that screams karate about you. It's not like if you look at like Wonder Boy or Machida, right? you could like see straight away, like, all right, this isn't traditional stance. And again, like, and you have 3 submissions so far. So you're like focusing on other aspects in the ring. Is that just because, you know how, so for example, John Jones, when he fought, and maybe he did this with a couple other fighters, but when he fought Chael Sonnen, and he said, I wanted to take it to the ground because I wanted to show him that I'm better at what he does. And I think sometimes people want to do that, right? They want to show that what other people think is maybe not their strongest suit. They want to show that they could do this just as well as anybody else. Is there like any part of that in this type of thing? Or is that just something that organically happens?
Look, that's ego. Wanting to show I'm better than you in your game, that's ego.
Yeah.
I try not to be like that. Sometimes, of course, we're all men. We're all fighting shirtless in cages. Yeah, sometimes we
have ego. Yeah.
Yeah. We all want to prove we're the best.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like I always try and enter the fight just calm and thinking, what's my easiest way of winning this fight?
Mm-hmm.
If he's so strong on the feet, I'll take him down. If he's so good on the ground, I'll keep it standing. So I just find the easiest path to victory, and usually it works out. Of course, there's something sweet, like for this last fight, my opponent had like 5 submissions from 6 fights in pro fights, plus a bunch in amateur, undefeated, brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm just a blue belt.
Mm-hmm.
Felt great to smash him and choke him out.
See, that's what I'm saying. It feels good.
True, but I wasn't trying to take it to the ground. He was trying to take me down, and I was just reversing the position. And then you get to be on top in a fight. Of course, you're going to take it. You can rain punches, put the pressure on, get him tired, and that's what I did. So, when you're standing, I can punch you and you can punch me. When we're on the ground and you're with your back to the ground, I can punch you and you can only work to get up or work to create separation. To submit me, it would take 1, 2, 3, 4 mistakes that I do in a row. So you can't really get as much of a lucky submission as you could have a lucky punch. And I'm trying to get the luck out of the equation.
Mm-hmm. And you took that fight on very short notice. What, like a week?
2 days.
2 days. Shit.
Yeah.
And it was a catch weight.
Yeah.
And how much did you have to cut in those 2 days?
13 pounds.
Woo. It's not. Is it okay? Is that like something you can do in 2 days, or was it a stretch?
No, it was all right.
Oh, that was a beautiful fight. And did Dana White say anything at the end? Did he tell you something?
Said, no, just what he said on camera, that he was impressed, that he can't wait to see my striking, and I can't wait to show it.
There's a video, or maybe it's audio, this is from years back, right? I just heard it.
The Jewish champion?
You know it, right? You heard it.
Of course I know it. I heard it years ago, and I was like, don't worry, Dana, I'm on my way.
So for people who don't know, there's some, you can find it somewhere on the internet where he was on an interview, Dana White, and I don't even know what the reasoning would be behind this. I still don't understand it, but he said if we had a Jewish champion, he would be like the biggest thing in the UFC, right? I don't know what the logic is. It's, there's like 12 million Jews. It's nothing. It's such a small number.
I think he was meaning more like sponsorship money.
You think so?
I think he was saying, we want to have, like a German champion, this champion, a champion from Africa, and wait till we get a Jewish champion, like the sponsorship money that this guy's going to make, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. But nobody called me to give me money.
Yet. No one called you yet.
Yeah.
But it is true that, and you said this earlier, the US is so big, right? Like whatever happens here. So if you're, and I think I said this in a podcast previous, but if you're a star in, I don't know, France or Spain, you're just a star in France or Spain. If you're a star in the US, you're a global star, right? You're a global phenomenon. And when you have Jan Blachowicz from Poland, he just won massive. He went on over all the talk shows in Poland. When you have, I had Adam Boric, who's a fighter in Bellator, not as big, obviously, as the UFC, but he still has a lot of popularity back in Hungary. And even Rosenstruck, when he knocked out Overeem, when he went back to his country, massive superstar. So if you're from a foreign country and you make it big in the US, they're going to celebrate you back home. And you're just in the UFC. Have you started to feel that from back home or not yet?
A little bit.
Little bit?
Yeah, like also, everything I wasn't home, so everything I could do was via Zoom. Did some talk shows, like sports shows. So the thing is, it's very niche, and
they don't know anything about it.
They don't know anything about it. Some interviewers ask stupid questions.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to answer because I want to educate everyone. But I think there could be like better questions that would educate everyone and also not be dumb questions.
So that's the problem. I watched you on some talk show. It was so cringe. Not you. You were great. The hosts were so bad. You could see they knew zero. They knew absolutely zero about anything martial arts related. And it was just a general sports talk show. And again, like this goes back to there's a problem in Israel because we're such a small country and there's such a limited bandwidth for anything out of the what mainstream is. And mainstream is soccer and basketball. Outside of that, there's just not a lot of bandwidth. And they can't have like specific niche outlets for every sport like they do here in the US, right? Here, every sport has like a whole thing, a whole industry around it, right? And you just can't have that.
And MMA is not curling. It's
still
MMA.
Yeah, but still, it's just we don't have a martial arts culture, right? Like maybe in Russia or Japan or Brazil. Obviously, it's humongous in Brazil. Like that, the culture they have it, even if they don't have the sports, maybe networks around it. The culture is big, and for us, like the biggest culture is soccer. Right? That's the biggest sport. Like there's just not that culture around MMA, around Muay Thai, around boxing. It doesn't exist as much, right?
Yeah.
You think we could grow that? Do you see it becoming bigger?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. MMA is growing around the world. And I think especially Israel, like we're 10 years late. But probably 10 years from now, or I'm hoping really sooner, I'm hoping I make a little bit more noise in the UFC, and maybe people start understanding what is this about. And of course, we're always trying to clear the name of MMA for people like who immediately think it's violent and whatnot. Like it is violent, but it's not violence in the name of violence. It's
an art form.
It's way more complex than that. Some people it would be too violent for, no doubt.
Yeah.
But at least know the sport, respect the fighters, understand the sacrifice and discipline that it takes to get to where we're at.
Yeah, because I 100% agree. I think it takes like one person to be very successful in the UFC for it to give it like a massive push in Israel, because so far we've had the Ghazali son father duo in Bellator, right? And I think the father is retired now, and the son, I mean, he's good, but again, it's Bellator. It just doesn't have the same clout. Noadlat, I think he had like 3 fights in the UFC. It didn't go very well for him. I think he won 1, lost 2.
No, he won 2,
lost 2. Okay. And then you have Itai Gershon, which is funny because I actually fought him on the amateur level like 10 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. Long time ago.
Beat your ass.
It was okay. He beat me, but it wasn't like a beatdown. But he's good, man. He was very good.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And he's in Glory. But I feel like someone like you could really elevate it back home and make it mainstream, where now it's not. It's nowhere even close to mainstream.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do that. I'm hoping one day, maybe, crossing my fingers, we could bring the UFC to Israel. That would be amazing.
Imagine, that would be massive. Because I think Bellator had a couple of events, and I think they did pretty well.
I think they gave out opportunity to a lot of fighters, which is great. Like I said, I think those fighters need more building, starting with amateur fights, to get to a level where when they are pro fighters, they look like pro fighters.
Yeah. There's let's talk something a little bit different. And I don't remember if we talked about this in the beginning of the podcast or right before the podcast, but we were talking about promoting yourself and knowing English. And a lot of times fighters coming from overseas, I think Aldo hurt himself in the beginning. I think Silva did as well. I see now with Figueiredo as well. He's a superstar in the making potentially, but just knows zero English, right? And how important is it, do you think, to learn at least the basics, right? So you can kind of talk to your fans, especially in the US, promote yourself, cut a good promo after a fight, do interviews. It has to be super important, no?
It is. I didn't learn English for this. I learned English just from watching TV shows back home. Nothing is dubbed, so
yeah.
And I think those fighters, it's hard to say bro, learn English. It's not that easy to learn English when you're already 30 and they don't come from a very privileged background where they could stop their life and watch TV shows in English. They probably had to work, like Figueiredo had to work with, I saw pictures of him at the sushi, at the hairdresser, pushing bulls or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think he had time to watch all kinds of shows. But yeah, bro, now you have the belt, get a tutor, start learning English, at least until you can get to Habib level of English. You don't need to be perfect at it. I'm not perfect at it, but be able to send a message or understand what people are asking you.
Yeah. I mean, Khabib it's so funny because his English is I don't want to say it's limited. It is limited, but he's got good enough English that he can communicate, that you can understand it.
Yeah.
And he is so stoic, but he's hilarious. He is so funny. And he's so funny because he's so authentic to who he is. But if he didn't have that, I don't know if he would be as big as he is. His dynamic with DC, the way he talks, it's amazing, and you have to have, like I said, just the basic English to communicate that with people,
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to have perfect English. I think it even has some charm, level of English is at. I say don't improve it, just where you're at.
Yeah.
And he has enough to pass through the message, who he is. And yeah, all the back and forth, him and DC, it's hilarious. It's always fun to watch.
So good.
Yeah, I think this level is more than enough because, like I said, he passes the message on.
Yeah, because there's a lot of guys with I don't know, 1-2 fights in the UFC, right? And then you see them with 1 million followers on Instagram because they are marketable, because I don't know, they talk well, they got a good look, whatever the package is. But it's not necessarily because, you'll see fighters with or champions with 10, 15 fights in the UFC and they don't have 1 million followers. But this guy just fresh off the boat, first fight in the UFC, he's got 1 million followers already because he knows how to play the part. So I just feel like some fighters are doing themselves a disservice and again, like, you should be authentic to yourself. Like, don't sell yourself out. Don't be who you're not. But you should also know that this is the entertainment business, and there should be some aspect of you that is entertaining. Whatever that is, find your niche, find what makes you stand out, but do that. Yeah.
Agreed.
So you're going to be in the 155 division, right?
Yeah.
That's shark-infested waters. Are you excited to test yourself against arguably the best people in the world in the most talent-stacked division?
Yeah, I think this division has a good combination of speed and power and talent. Smaller people move more well.
Yeah.
Like, they have better control of their body. That's why flyweights are way more technical than heavyweights or any other weight class. And, I think, like, I'm moving up from 145. So obviously the opponents are going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. But at the same time, I'm not going to be killing myself with the weight cut. And I think I'm going to be way stronger than I was at 45. I'm going to be probably about the same speed. So hopefully I can match their speed, or maybe be even a little bit faster. And yeah, I can't wait.
What do you make of the kind of the top? There's kind of like a log jam or some sort of a clusterfuck happening at the top of the 155 division, where you got like 5 or 6 people, and they're all, I don't know. It's almost like I would love to see some sort of a K1 Max type thing back in the day, where they used to do like 6 fights.
Tournament, yeah,
a tournament type thing, and then at the end of the night, one person. They're never going to do that, but I feel like almost that's where we're at. There's just so tough at the top. There's so much politics and so much angling of what is the best thing to do, and it's not right now. It has nothing to do with meritocracy, where who fights the best. It's kind of like a lot of politics. At least it seems in the 55 division, at least in the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, look, it is a big problem with Khabib leaving the division, and the belt is not vacant yet. They're never going to do a tournament, because when you do a tournament, you basically give everybody who does that tournament a loss in their last fight, other than the only one who's a winner.
Yeah.
So you basically make the whole division losers. Everybody lost their last fight. What the UFC usually do is they put like 2 top contenders. Winner is the number 1 contender, is going to fight next for the title. Have another fight kind of ready in the chamber for the number 2 contender, we'll call it, so that whoever wins the title fight, then they go up against. So they always have a contender ready. The moment you do the tournament, everybody has a loss in their last fight. So once you have a champion, who's going to fight him? Now you need a year to get everybody sorted out again to have a number 1 contender.
Yeah. It's hard, man, because Khabib saying he's retired, Dana White saying he's not retired, and now in January you have Conor Dustin, and they're saying it's going to be in front of a packed audience, like stadium in Abu Dhabi.
Could be, yeah.
Which is,
I believe it.
That's crazy. And you can go to Abu Dhabi now.
Already been.
You've been to Abu Dhabi. Okay. How is it?
It's cool. I cornered my friend Mark Striegel. He's the only Filipino fighter in the UFC.
Okay.
And, we were in the hotel the whole time. So it's kind of hard to say I was in Abu Dhabi. I was in the hotel in Abu Dhabi. And in the venue for the fight, in the bus in between, and that's it. But it was pretty cool being there. All the fighters, like all the UFC staff members, cornering in the UFC was cool. And at the same time, I kind of don't want to go again, because I already been there. I got the experience. Fights are either thousands of miles away or like 5 minutes from my house. So I rather fight 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah, you could just jog there easily.
Yeah.
How is the experience of no crowds? You know, in the beginning, I kind of liked it because I liked to hear like the thuds, and I like to hear the corners. But now I honestly, after a few months, because I try to watch every single event, but I kind of miss the energy, you know. And how is it for you as a fighter or as someone who's you know, cornering a friend?
Look, I had the 2 fights without a crowd, and I kind of like it better.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I do like fighting in front of the crowd. Like some people, they're like, oh shit, there's 2,000 people out there. It gets them nervous.
Yeah.
And me, it makes me feel like there's 2,000 people out there. Okay, let's put in an effort and put on a good show for them.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of gives me drive. But, you know, you can hear your corner better. You can hear the strikes better. Watching the fights, I enjoy way more without a crowd. And of course, sometimes you miss it, like when the fight is crazy. Yeah, you kind of want the crowd.
Yeah.
But also when you can hear the strike so well, the coaches so well. As a fighter and somebody who's also interested in what's going on, really like in details and what would this coach say about this situation, and then you hear it. That's cool.
Yeah. There's there's a funny thing where sometimes they can literally hear the commentators giving them tips because it's so quiet in there. So
Right.
DC or Bisping will give like, oh, they should do this and this, and then you see the fighters are doing this and this in the ring. So I'm like, dude, listen to your coach. Don't listen to DC. But
I would listen to DC as well.
Yeah, I'd probably listen to DC as well. To be fair, how are you with? Because you took, and this is something we're seeing more and more. It didn't really work out for Felder, but you took a fight on 2 days' notice. You know, albeit catch weight, but still you performed really, really well. And we're seeing a lot of guys taking short notice fights, and they're killing it. They're doing really well. And they're like, oh, you know, I didn't have all the wear and tear of a fight camp and all the I don't know, all the months of mental preparation and all the stuff that goes into that. So I'm fresh. So I'm like, well, shit, if that works, maybe that's something that like maybe you know, just generally you can do like one fight, you do a fight camp, next fight you don't do a fight camp. Like, is there some way to interweave that into your thing, or it's just that you can't do it? Just it is what it is.
I kind of want to do it that way.
Okay.
Look, I'm always in shape. I'm always training 3 times a day. So for me, it's not a question of like, I need 12 months to get ready. Like, no, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But you want to get ready for the, you know, specific opponent and game plan for him and get your muscle memory right for everything you want to do in the fight. And also, maybe you are going to make some adjustments to training. Like me, I used to train 3 times a day, and then camp time 4 or 5 times a day I'll train.
Wow.
And you know, at some point I started seeing that it does more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my approach. I was like, I'm doing 3 times a day, and when I'm in camp, I'm taking it down. I'm doing it twice a day. To let my body like more recover, because the number one priority for me to get to the fight is first healthy.
Yeah.
So first is being healthy, then being in shape, and then it's game plan and all that.
Yeah.
So so again, for me, like, yeah, it did feel good to just go out there and fight. Obviously, I would have liked to know that I'm fighting a few weeks earlier to get like more rest before the fight, do a little bit more cardio and conditioning, and a little bit less hard sparring, you know, week of the fight, because I was sparring hard 3 or 4 days before the fight. That's not something you want to do usually.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not 2 days notice, but I would like to like stay in shape, Now that I'm a 55er, I don't have this headache of like cutting to 45 and it takes me a month. I can make 55 in a week. So just a week or two, heads up, and let's go.
Do you? Because you seem very calm. Calm, cool, collected. Do you do? Is that just your personality, or do you do a lot of like mental preparation before fights, or like meditation, any stuff like that?
That's a big, that's who I am.
Okay.
But also, like I said, I think it's a lot from karate, from training. I trained in situations that were very hard, and I learned like not to quit. I learned not to panic. Like I would do sparring in MMA, let's say 5-minute rounds. When I did karate and I was just a kid, they put me in front of somebody that's way bigger, way stronger, and it wouldn't be 5-minute rounds, or it'd just be like an hour. You're just sparring for an hour. And at some point, like you stop being edgy and you stop being like, you kind of stop being afraid. You stop panicking because like you just can't anymore. You're too tired and you're getting beat up and you just, okay, I'm getting beat up, and you move and you try and do what you can do to not get beat up, but you still do. And that's also a big part of it. And for me, meditating, I never really sit down and like meditate. For me, meditating, it's sparring, it's drilling. If I'm thinking about what am I going to have for dinner, what am I, all that stuff. What am I going to do in this next year? Where's my phone? That's not meditating. When you're doing something and you're completely in it, when you're sparring and you're thinking, oh, he's going to punch me with this, I got to block. By the time you think all that, you already got punched and the moment's gone. So really being in the moment, seeing, reacting, blocking the punches, moving away, attacking back without thinking, that's meditation for me. You don't think about the past, not about the future, you're just in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, how much, when you're fighting, how much, I would assume majority, but you can probably tell me better, how much of it is instinct? Because I don't assume you're probably thinking, okay, he hit me with this. I'm dodging. I'm going to grab him with this. I'm going to, sneak a single, whatever it is. Like you're just reactive, and the majority of it is probably
you're flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're flowing, your instincts. Sometimes your coaches will tell you a certain code for a certain combination.
Yeah.
And even that, you can't start thinking, oh, he said this, so I got to do. No, that's it. You already got hit. You need to be able to drill, like I said, in muscle memory. The moment you hear it, you just throw the first punch and everything else flows out because you're so used to doing it.
So we talked about overnight success, and how hard is it? Because again, your overnight success is 7 years in the making. You got here from Israel, and I'm thinking year 1, year 2, year 3, you're getting put on your back. You're not used to it because you're from karate, and then you go onto the regional scene and you have those fights. But it's year 1, it's year 2, it's year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a long time to keep the hope and to know that I am going to succeed no matter what. Because you could have easily quit after year 2, after year 3, said, you know what, fuck it, it's not happening. I can't do it. But you stuck with it.
Look, I did have those thoughts. That's exactly what I wanted to do. But you kept
going.
Yeah, I just couldn't let myself quit. I wanted to quit. Like, I can't tell you, no, I didn't want to quit. No, I wanted to quit. I just couldn't.
Yeah. But that's the difference between someone like you and someone that does quit, because everyone thinks that. I'm sure we're human. We're not robots. So everyone is like, this is too hard. And in every industry, right? For me, with business, I have that sometimes. And I'm sure everyone has it. But that's the difference between people that think it and then do it than someone like you that thinks it, but then blocks it out and keeps going.
Yeah, and And for me, it wasn't just, keep doing what you're doing, because it means like my visa's expired. It's going to expire. I'm out of money. I got to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
And then again for 6 months, work my ass off to save money, work security during the night, then train during the day, save that money. And instead again of like just being like, I'm staying here, I'm opening a gym again, it's just like, okay, I'm buying a ticket and going out there again.
Yeah.
Even though it did take me like 2.5 years to get my first amateur fight. So for 2.5 years, I would go back and forth, Israel and Vegas, without even fighting. And every time I'd come home, everybody'd be like, Natan, didn't you say you're going to fight or something? And I'm like, nah, you don't understand. This guy pulled out on the fight.
Oh, yeah.
That other guy came in with a mouth infection and the commission wouldn't let him fight, and this and that. And everybody thinks I'm full of shit.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And for after the 2.5 years, I got my first break and I did win my first amateur fight. Then for 1 year, I had 4 amateur fights and then I broke my hand. And like breaking, not my arm, like my hand.
Yeah.
And in 2 locations. And it's 1 year of recovery.
Wow.
Yeah. And also you're like, am I even going to make it back? I can't even use my fingers right now. Like, how am I going to punch? And it takes you a few years to punch confidently again with that hand.
Did they put any screws or anything in there?
Yeah. I got a metal plate and some screws.
Okay.
On one of the fractures, the other one didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to Vegas a year later, did my first pro fight, won that. And it took me, like two years to get 4 pro fights, which is not, it's not very active.
Yeah.
Then I didn't fight for 1.5 years almost because of COVID and all kinds of, shit that happened.
Yeah.
And finally I got back in there in August. And was lucky enough to get this opportunity in November. That's like 3 months in between fights. That's pretty active for me. And I'm hoping to get the next one in a couple of months to keep it going.
How did that even happen? How did they end up reaching out to you?
Just Sunday, I was going to go get some coffee and whatnot.
Yeah. And
I get a call from my agent. Are you willing to take a fight this Tuesday on Dana White's Contender series against so-and-so? My first question is just like, did you talk to my coaches? Are they in? And he said, yeah, I'm texting them. While we're talking, I'm just watching his fight on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.
Okay, looks decent. But, yeah, he's a huge guy. A lot of submissions, like on paper, terrifying. But, I saw him and I thought, like, I can take him. Like, yeah. What did my coaches say? Coaches said to take the fight. So there you have it. Let's go. And that's what we did.
That's amazing, man. I can't wait to see. Do you have any idea when you'll fight? When your first official fight will be?
I'm hoping beginning of 2021.
You don't have any idea who it is, or do you have someone in mind that you would like to fight as a first fight?
No, to be honest, I don't really watch prelims fights.
Okay.
So I don't know anybody outside the top 15.
You should watch. There's amazing. I'm telling you.
No, of course.
Some of the best fights sometimes are the prelims. They're amazing.
No doubt. Even my friend Sasha Palatnikov just won fight of the night, and he was the first fight on the prelims.
Yeah, I saw that fight.
Yeah. But just, usually we train during Saturday. So by the time we finish, shower, eat, all that stuff, it's already time for the main card. And I don't really know a lot of people outside the top 15. So I need to start looking up the UFC roster and seeing who's who.
Yeah, you need to figure out who your next call out's going to win after your first win, man.
Yeah.
That's how you cut
Obviously,
a promo.
yeah. I don't think I'm gonna call anybody out right now. I'm just gonna wait for Sean Shelby to call. But yeah, I'm gonna have some people in mind for the next one.
Yeah. That's, I mean, not that I know, right? But from a marketing aspect, I feel like the ones that make a call out, that do those type of things, they draw more attention to themselves, right? Like the guy, although this is a little bit different story, but the guy Joaquin Buckley with that crazy with that crazy spin kick. I don't even know how he came up with it, but he's got this feud now with
James Jones.
Yep. And everyone's about that, right? Like everyone loves a good feud, some good blood sport, and everyone loves a good call out. I don't know. I feel like whenever people do it in the UFC, they grab a lot of attention, and deservedly so, because it's something that the fans can latch onto. They want to see that.
Yeah, you only get the mic like once in a while, with the UFC, and all the attention is on you. It's not like some YouTube post-fight interview. It's right there on ESPN. Like, do something with it.
Exactly.
It can be a call out. It can be something else, like saying your balls were hot. But use it.
Oh, that was amazing. Or like Nate Diaz, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. That's one of the best one-liners I've ever heard, right? Like he could have sold 1 million shirts just with that one-liner.
I bet he did.
I bet he did. So how's, like historically, the Jewish mom has not been a big fan of their sons fighting. Just from my experience and just from knowing a lot of Jewish moms. How is your mom with
So really, historically, a lot of Jewish boxers, and even a friend of mine just sent me, like we were texting. I never knew it about her. Her grandfather was a wrestler, and I was like, "What was his name?" And she told me his name, and he told me, but he had another made-up name, so his mom doesn't know he was wrestling. And a lot of Jewish boxers, we have a bunch of great ones in history. Many of them changed their names when they were boxing, so their parents wouldn't know they were boxing. Like they would, it wasn't like now everything's on TV and online. It was in the newspaper, the name, and they wouldn't know it's their son.
Yeah, yeah.
But me, my mom supports it. Obviously, she'd rather me being a lawyer or something, but she knows who I am, and she just like supports it.
Does she watch the fights?
After she knows I won.
Not live.
Not live. I don't think so.
Yeah, I could see that. When I was doing some amateur fights, like my parents were just not interested in watching it. They just it's not like here where like the parents support you and they're like, we don't want to see that. No. It's like no. It's such a different mindset back home.
Yeah.
So a couple more. I know you got to go soon, but I've been watching a lot of guys, especially this year with a lot of people like DC and Anderson Silva and a lot of other guys retiring. But Anderson Silva, although retired from the UFC, not retired from MMA apparently. And this is something I think about this a lot, man, because just as an example, like if I look at the GOATs, right? There's ever since Khabib, there's this whole GOAT conversation. And I would easily have put Silva in that discussion if he would have quit in his prime, right? If, let's say, after the Weidman fight, he would have quit. But ever since Weidman, I think he has like one win or something. Like he's basically been losing for the last 5-6 years, right? And a lot of these guys, Weidman as well. Weidman is like, I think he lost his last like 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 5. BJ Penn lost like 7 in a row. Cowboys, like I think losing his last 5. Aldo as well. Like there's a lot of these giants that just don't know when to say enough is enough, and they lose, and they keep losing in horrible fashion, and they kind of ruin their legacy. And in my opinion, I think they just ruin their legacy. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the thing is, like Floyd being 50-0 and retiring, it's great. But what do you think about another boxer who went 80-0 and then he lost? So what's more, what's greater, like in history?
Mm-hmm.
Usually the 50-0. But for me, I feel like that guy went 80-0, and yet then he lost a couple, won another 30, lost a few more. Okay, the ratio started going a little bit bad, and then he retired. But in his prime, he had a way better record than Floyd. So what do you make of that? I still think like Anderson, Silva, Fedor. I still think there's some of the MMA goats for their skill in their prime. Then you know what happened after. Of course, it's going to put their stock down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I look more like at their prime, and I think Anderson Silva in his prime, he was amazing, no doubt.
Oh, 100%. He was unbelievable. It's just and that's kind of the memory you wanna have, right? Every time you think.
Of course, I wish he'd retire before the Weidman fight, but then you're not building up Weidman.
Yeah.
So after the Weidman fight, at the end of the day, it's his job, and sometimes you stay in your job even though you're past your prime, and they deserve to get paid. If they can still compete with the best in the world, why not win some, lose some? And of course, it breaks your heart when they start losing more than winning, but it's a part of the sport.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. They can't compete anymore. A lot of these guys who are past their 40s, they're
right
just
now,
losing.
Anderson, I wish it quit. I wish it quit a few fights ago, but now's the.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't get picked up by like Bellator or one of the other promotions.
Yeah. They love that shit in Bellator, just picking up old washed up fighters.
Yeah.
Just stop.
They really should. And it sucks because also for them as a promotion, like that's a bad reputation to have. If you're picking up all the sloppy seconds from the UFC, guys who just couldn't make it there or just decided to lose. Because they have some really good fighters. They have some really great up-and-comers. They have some great talented folks. But then the other side is they have all the sloppy seconds of the UFC, and that just gives them a bad name, in my opinion.
They do, yeah. They have a bad name. They have a name of, taking the sloppy seconds, taking the old men that can't compete anymore and putting them like, I don't know how the commission lets those fights go down. So I'm blaming the commission as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bellator start investing in new blood and new talent, and let those guys retire in peace. Because there's something I'm not sure quite how to say it, but like when the police, like somebody's undercover, and they make somebody do a crime.
Yeah.
You can't like accuse that guy of doing the crime, right?
Yeah. It's called. Yeah, I'm blanking on it, but I know what you mean.
Right. So when you have like somebody who's 46 and he says he's retired from fighting, his contract with the UFC is up. Coming in is like, just let him be. When you come to him and you're like, oh, you got a big name, here's $100,000 to keep fighting for us.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of pushing him over the edge. Of course, he's going to need the money. Of course, he's going to want $100,000. But also, you're going to make an old man, for a fighter, get more brain trauma than he already has. His reflexes are not the same. He's not going to be able to evade punches and strikes the same way. Like, just let him be. Coming and waving all that money in his face, you're kind of making him do the sin, right?
100%. And do you think that also comes down to maybe because you talked about this earlier a little bit, like how important it is to have like a solid team,
right?
A coach that you really trust and admire, and he wants what's best for you. And maybe some of these fighters don't have those type of people by their side, and maybe the people that are by their side, they need Silva. And I don't know this for a fact. I'm just hypothesizing, but maybe they're like, no, you still got it. You should fight because he's their meal ticket. And maybe some fighters have those type of people around them that just give them bad advice.
True. Yeah, a lot of people don't have your best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And one thing about my coach, Giff, he trained a few world champions in the UFC and many other fighters, and literally made some fighters retire. Like, fighters never want to retire. They always think they got one good run in them, one good fight left in them. They want to retire on a win.
Yeah.
All kinds of, they want to retire on a win, but they go and lose 5 more fights. So a lot of time you just cut the fighter's career. He said, that's it, you're done. If you want to keep fighting, it's going to be without me. And a lot of fighters, no, I got one more fight in me. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? You just got knocked out. Let's make a deal. Take a rest for a year. Don't fight for a year. And then if you want to get that win for your last fight, let's do it a year from now. They say yes. And then after a year of not fighting, they're like, I'm good.
There's, I don't know what the stats are, but if I had to guess, I would say the majority of fighters retire on a loss. Like the majority of them don't retire with a win, man, and not a good one too. Usually, a lot of times with a string of losses, bad losses. Look at Chuck and look at just the list is really endless. But then you have someone like what's his name? I'm blanking. The heavyweight, the Russian guy, Arlovsky. Somehow, I don't know how, but he's a 1 in a million. This isn't something that people should really admire or emulate. But somehow he's turned it around and he's doing phenomenally better than he's done in years. Somehow, right. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think because MMA is such a sport of skill. You got so many different skills, and experience plays a huge part. So you can see like the age of somebody in his prime, it's usually higher than the age of people's prime in other sports because it's not all about your athletic ability. Yeah. It's a lot about, like I said, your experience, how much of a veteran you are. Arlovsky, he's a freak of nature to keep fighting for so long. Get cut by the UFC and then get back in the UFC, start losing in the UFC and start winning again. Having no chin, then having a chin again. It's incredible. But I really remember like being a kid and watching him fight Tim Sylvia and all those guys. That was a lifetime ago.
It's incredible that he's still around, man. He's he's probably been fighting longer than you're alive, man.
I'm pretty sure he is.
He's insane. So are there any, we're about to wrap it up, but are there any Israeli fighters on the come up, some guys that maybe, people should keep their eyes on that you think will potentially be in the UFC or some of the other organizations in the next coming years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We have Eli Barzilai. He's a young stud training here at Syndicate MMA. He's 19-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Already first place in European Championship in Jiu-Jitsu, second in the world.
Wow.
Already has 2 amateur fights at 19, MMA fights.
Wow.
We have Ben Cohen, lives here in Vegas, fights for Bellator. He's a pro, 125, he's a beast. I wrestle him and I'm amazed how strong is this guy. He's so tiny and he gives me a hard time. Yeah, he's a great athlete. We have a bunch more. We have Tariel Abbasov. He just turned pro and had like 4-0 in amateur. So 4-0, maybe even 5-0, I think. So that's a good start. And we got a bunch more. We got more incoming, and I really want to start doing things to help those fighters have a shot in it, because really it's not about like how good you are, like with me, like wanting to quit and not doing it. A lot of times it's not because I lost the fight and didn't know if I was good enough. I never met that ceiling yet.
Yeah.
It's like all the surrounding. It's so difficult, like financially, with time, flights, getting fights. Everything is so difficult. So I really want to start making a path for younger fighters, to have it easier. We also have more TS training here with us in town, another MMA fighter from Israel. So we got a bunch coming in, and I'm trying to help them as much as possible. And yeah, we got a bunch of talents. We're fighters in heart, so all we need is the right infrastructure to get fighters going, and I'm sure we will have a lot of successful careers coming out of our country.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I want them to succeed. I want people from back home to succeed and to have a good career and to represent the country well. And it's always fun, when someone from back home is able to get to that level, because I know how doesn't matter where you're from, right? Even if you're here from the US, it's difficult. So if you're from a small country with a different language and no infrastructure and no culture of fighting and no systems in place to really propel you, all you have is your own motivation. The odds are stacked against you. So whoever, is able to go against that upstream like salmon and get to his nesting area and really push the pace and succeed, hats off, man. So I do hope we get a lot more a lot of top talent from Israel, because I do believe we have them. We have talented people back home. It's just it's hard for them to make that leap from there to here.
Yeah, true. And also, like I said, it's hard for them a lot of times to find the right coaches and the right teammates to make it. Like, they have the potential, but you know what potential means? It means you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And potential is great, but there's plenty of potential everywhere you look. The question is, who's going to have the right surroundings to turn that potential into something?
100%. So, Natan, what ideal scenario in your head? What are the next 2 years look like?
Just getting a bunch of fights, and hopefully 2 years from now having a number next to my name, being ranked in the UFC.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that's very achievable, and I'll definitely be watching all your fights, man, and supporting. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I had a blast.
Thank you very much for having me. Me too.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to do this, hit me up. I'm happy to have these type of talks with you. And best of luck with everything, man. Really, I support you fully.
Sounds great. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.